So the first thing I want to go over is just the human body is comprised of about 55% water, about 20% protein, about 15% fat, 9% minerals, and then about 1% is carbohydrates and vitamins. This is important because they all play a role in digestion. Digestion is basically the process. It starts in the mouth with chewing and then swallowing, and then of course with what happens in the stomach and the gastrointestinal tract. But what's really important to understand is that your macronutrients, your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrates break down at a different rate depending on the food you're eating. So there's basically two different phases. You have the mechanical and the chemical phase. Mechanical is the chewing, the swallowing, and the muscular activity in the walls of the digestive tract. And then the chemical phase is the enzymatic reactions that are taking place. And that starts with the saliva, and then, of course, then the hydrochloric acid and bile in the stomach. And what happens is that your building blocks for your macronutrients, for protein, it's amino acids. So the protein is actually broken back down into amino acids. And with fat, the building blocks for fat are fatty acids. And so fat is broken down into fatty acids. And then for carbohydrates, the building blocks for carbohydrates are sugars, and so the carbohydrates, depending on the complexity of them, are broken down into simple sugars. So a lot of people want to blame it on their metabolism. Metabolism is really just a fancy word for all the activity. It's all the physical and chemical processes that take place within the cells of your body. Your metabolic rate can change, but your metabolism per se cannot. Your metabolic rate is the rate at which your body burns fuel. So there are a couple of ways that you can increase your metabolic rate, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this is a really good analogy to use because here on the left-hand side we have a Model T, Ford, and then on the right-hand side we have a race car, a Formula One race car. You know, based on these two examples, you would think that the Formula One race car actually has a higher metabolism. But metabolism is a lot like miles per gallon. The Model T, back in the day, would get somewhere between 30 and 40 miles per gallon. And the Formula One race car gets somewhere between maybe 3 and 5 miles per gallon. Your metabolism is a lot like miles per gallon. It may change a little bit depending on whether you're driving on the highway or in the city, but your metabolism is basically set. So when you look at a magazine and it says, 10 ways to increase your metabolism, what they're really referring to is your metabolic rate. And there's several ways you can do that. One is by eating quality foods. 2 is by increasing the frequency of your meals. And 3 is by drinking more water. We like to use the examples that your metabolism is a lot like a wheel. The more often you eat, the faster that wheel spins. And then just imagine you're shoving food down the garbage disposal without turning it on. Not much is going to happen, but if you make sure that you're keeping yourself hydrated, you'll be able to increase the rate of digestion and hence increase your metabolic rate. So that's really what I wanted to talk about on Chapter 2. It's a perfect lead-in to talk about the 21-day detox. This is a program that we're going to be launching effective tomorrow. Anybody can start this program at their convenience, but we're actually going to have the workshop on Saturday the 22nd at 12 p.m. at All Star Martial Arts. And of course, if you can't make it, don't worry, it's going to be recorded. But there's a couple things that I want to talk about. And the first one is why detox? And a lot of people, they'll follow a detox program because they want to lose weight. Well, that's great, but that's not really the ultimate goal. The goal is to improve your health and identify any underlying causes that may impede you from being able to lose weight. the main objectives of a detoxification process are to decrease the toxicity and inflammation. Because if your body is inflamed, or if you have a lot of toxins and impurities, you're not going to be able to effectively lose weight. And so weight loss really is a side effect. And there are different sources of toxins and impurities. They can be found in almost everything. Since the 1950s, we've introduced over 75,000 chemicals to our environment, and that definitely plays a role in increasing the amount of toxins and impurities that are absorbed into our body. But even just addictive habits like coffee or sugar or alcohol or processed foods or fast food or junk food, or your trans fats or high fructose corn syrup, all of those foods contain a large amount of toxins and impurities. And then a lot of people have food allergies and they don't even know it. And some of those allergies can be from gluten, dairy, soy, or corn, and that's one that you actually hear about quite a bit. And then, of course, a lot of your processed and refined foods like simple sugars and then white flour, and then your bad fats like your trans fats, and then even some of your saturated fats, and then, of course, alcohol. Anything that your body recognizes as a foreign substance is really considered a toxin or an impurity. And so what is toxicity? Well, toxicity is, like I said, it's just anything that's considered foreign to your body. But the toxic load of your body comes from your diet, or from chronic stress, or from the environment. Toxins can be external or internal. External toxins include the chemicals that we were talking about, all the pesticides, the herbicides, the fungicides, the larvicides, and then everything that we're injecting into our food to help preserve it. And then a lot of our internal toxins, and this is where I think a lot of people don't understand how important just managing your stress and getting adequate sleep can do in order to help your body eliminate toxins and impurities. But some internal toxins would be like bacteria, yeast, and other microorganisms. When you increase your toxic load, what happens is it puts an undue stress on your liver and your thyroid, and it can damage your mitochondria. Your mitochondria is basically the powerhouse of the cell. But when that happens, it can basically start destroying the cellular membrane and even the cells, and it can start harming your neurotransmitters, which are basically your brain hormones, and then as a result, it'll affect every other hormonal fluctuation. And and when that happens, a lot of people can suffer from an increase in appetite or inflammation, or ultimately an increase in weight gain. So what is inflammation? Well, being inflamed makes you fat, and being fat makes you inflamed. And I mean, that pretty much sums it up. But inflammation comes from a number of sources. It comes from sugar, it comes from oils and fat, hidden food allergies, lack of exercise, chronic stress, hidden infections, and fat cells. One of the things we didn't talk about, and this is also important, but even prescription medications. A lot of prescription medications can have toxins and impurities that can actually cause an inflammatory response. And of course, when your body is exposed to toxins and impurities and the inflammation process starts, well, you're at risk of developing a lot of chronic diseases like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia, and the list goes on. So, this is just kind of a brief introduction to what you can expect on the 21-day detox. But here are some of the things that you want to avoid: grains, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, legumes, dairy, food additives, and then protein powder. And here's what to eat. So obviously you should be taking in at least 6 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables, at least 2 to 3 servings of, 6 to 8 servings of vegetables, and at least 2 to 3 servings of fruits every day. Fat is your friend, and we're going to tell you exactly what fats we would recommend. Quality protein, and this can be a really important subject to understand, and it's something that we're going to talk about in detail during the workshop. As far as beverages, you should be consuming at least half your body weight in water. And then the only thing we're going to recommend, especially for people that have a caffeine addiction, is green tea. And then there are certain seasonings that we're going to recommend. We're recommending that you stay away from anything genetically modified, any GMOs or artificial sweeteners or anything of that nature. So with that being said, if you haven't had a chance to sign up for the 21-day detox, you can go to www.21daydetox.pgfit.com. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for any questions that you may have.